I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm sure there's no need to complicate our time. It's short. This is our fate. I'm yours. Someday I wish upon a star. Wake up where the clouds are far behind. Behind me, I am somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly. See them fly. Birds fly. I am over the rainbow. Why, oh, why can't I? Been spinning way too long, checking my tongue in the mirror and bending over backwards just to try to see it clearer. But my breath fogged up the glass, so I drew a new face and I laughed. I guess that what I'm saying is there ain't no better reason to rid yourself of vanities and just go with the seasons. It's what we aim to do. Our name is our virtue, but I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm yours. So please don't, please don't, please don't complicate, 'cause our time is short. This is our fate. I'm yours.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And just a reminder before we get started, up there on the screen, join our poll. Go ahead and text Auburn WA to 22333. Hurry up and do that now. You don't want to be left out. At this time, we'd like to welcome to the stage our Auburn chaplain, Ginger Passarelli, for our invocation. Please welcome to the stage Miss Auburn's outstanding teen, Olivia Thomas, to sing our national anthem. Please rise.
And you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please welcome to the stage the Mayor of Auburn, Nancy Backus.
Good evening. Thank you to Olivia backstage for that beautiful rendition of the national anthem. Let's give her another round of applause, shall we? And thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you also to our City Council for being here this evening and for your leadership throughout the year. I believe in the audience tonight we have Deputy Mayor Bob Baggett, Councilmember Bill Pelosa, Councilmember John Holman, and Councilmember Larry Brown. They're all sitting in different places, so there's no issues with quorums tonight. I just want to make sure that it's not because they don't like each other, it's just to make sure we have no quorum issues. I'd also like to take a moment and ask our city staff that's here this evening to stand so that you can recognize them for the amazing work that they do every single day on behalf of you for the city. And of course, before we go any further, I would also like to thank my amazing husband, Kimon, and my beautiful and talented daughter, Lucky, for their unwavering support and the sacrifices that they make that allow me to do the job that I love so very much. Thank you. So typically, I use this time at the beginning of our State of the City to ask you to stay connected with us throughout the year, to make sure that your voice is heard by engaging with us, sharing your ideas and thoughts so we can best serve you. And I'm still going to ask you to do that. But I would also like to add another request. I want you to join me in deepening the love we have for our city. Tonight, I want to talk about more than what we've done in this past year. I want to have a conversation about how we, as a community, have shaped our city during that time and how we will continue to transform it into a place we love even more going forward into the future. Tonight, we will talk about the ways in which this is already happening, and I will ask you what we can do together to strengthen our love for Auburn. So let me begin by asking you a question. What do you love about our city? So many things that define our love for place are the small and the intimate things. Is it the Lego hearts that are tucked away on the small corners of our buildings, or the sound of the trains in the distance at night? These are the love notes that we each find for ourselves that build our connection to the place we call home. They aren't always structured or planned. They are the paths in your favorite park, a corner cafe, the shady street where you can rest at the top of a steep hill. What are the things that you love about our city? So join me now. Pull out your phone and text your answer to the number on the screen, 22333, and type in capital letters, I think is the best way to do this, Auburn WA, and hit enter. I tried it earlier and I did Auburn WA in lowercase, and it kept auto-correcting me to Auburn Was, and I wasn't getting anywhere. So try capital letters Auburn WA, and then type in what you love about our city. By the way, there are no wrong answers. The parks. Intimate fellowship with the tribe. Great schools, I agree. The Auburn Avenue Theater, yay Jim. Passion for city. Independence Day at Let's Go Park. That small town feel. The diversity in terrain. Our residents, yes. The amazing sense of camaraderie. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. I agree with that. The warm hearts of the residents and the organizations that support it. Absolutely. Our sense of community. That's what we're here for tonight. People, yes. A lot. The view, the caring from City Hall, the location. Aw, thank you, the mayor, with my purple heart, thank you. It's home. Love the parks, the people, and the connectedness. And the people again. Yeah, I think those are all great things about our city, and hopefully by the end of the evening, we're going to give you even more things that you can think about to love. There's a mountain of evidence that shows the way we design our cities, our systems, and spaces. It has a strong impact on how we interact and regard one another on the whole. Are we more likely to stop and interact with one another on the street? Do we feel compelled to better our city through small actions like picking up litter or planting tulips along the pathway behind our home? The question I present to you here tonight is how can we, as your city government, foster and grow our collective love of community? How do we support and how do we enrich this process? Many times, city government is seen as the functional end of the community. We ensure that the water flows into our homes, that the roads and the buildings are safe for use, that the street lights come on at night. But if that is all that we strive for, I believe we are missing our bigger purpose. When we treat our role as city in a mechanical way, we create a result that is absolutely lifeless. But when we lead from a place of true love for our community, the result drives economic and social development. In 2006, the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation conducted a 3-year study of 28,000 people in 26 cities throughout the United States to explore the community qualities that influence residents' passion for where they live and how the feeling relates to the indicators of community well-being. The study found that only 24% of those interviewed, of those 28,000 people, were attached to their community. 36% were neutral, and 40% said they were unattached to their community. That means essentially 7 out of 10 people felt that they could be living anywhere and have the same experience. They had no connection to their community, none. I want better for Auburn, and I believe that by finding ways to strengthen our attachment and commitment to our city, by increasing our love of place, we will create a city that enriches all of us. As I mentioned earlier, the prosperity of our city is first built upon the keystones of livability. So, let's begin there. In 2017, we invested over $30 million in capital projects that are helping to reduce the congestion and improve the safety of our roadways for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. These infrastructure improvements are also enhancing health and safety by alleviating flooding risks by the 2 rivers that bind our city. and improving our water capacity and security. During the past year, we have replaced over 30 miles of deteriorating roadway, added and repaired more than 4 miles of sidewalk, and installed 6 new traffic signal systems, 2 dynamic messaging signs, and 3 rapid flashing beacons at non-signalized crosswalks. These improvements have increased the movement of traffic throughout our city, allowing vehicle sensoring to trigger precise automation that maximizes traffic flow and alerts drivers to traffic impacts ahead. It's also increased the safety of bikers and pedestrians, in particular our youngest residents, many of whom walk these well-traveled corridors on their way to school. And we've also added more than 1 mile of new water main, 1 mile of sewer pipe, and 2 miles of storm drain pipe. We completed installation of 3 new water pressure reducing valve stations, 2 new system well pumps, and tested our water supply for safety more than 1,500 times. In total, our maintenance and operation team completed nearly 22,000 resident-submitted tasks. We're a growing city, and we are committed to working diligently and tirelessly on your behalf. In the past half-decade, we have seen our population grow by nearly 10,000. We are now resting just shy of 80,000 residents in our city. We are no longer a small suburb in the shadow of a big city. We have grown into our own. But as we have seen our region thrive and expand at unprecedented rates, we have also been faced with the larger challenges of this growth. As we watch demands on Seattle housing increase rent and drive down availability, we have seen the ripple effect here within our own community. The demand for affordable housing puts stresses throughout our region. As those who can no longer afford to live in the urban core, they move further south into King County, and we find our stock of housing tightening as well. And as demand grows, so do prices. And the challenge we then face is how to ensure that this transition does not drive those already at risk for homelessness from their homes entirely. We're seeing this trend on the national level, but nowhere has it been more intensely concentrated than here in the Pacific Northwest. Last year, a count of unsheltered in our region found that 1,102 individuals were centered in Renton, Berrien, Kent, and the Auburn subregion. That's nearly 20% of all homeless individuals for our county. 73% of those individuals identified housing costs as their primary barrier for moving out of homelessness. It is an alarming statistic and one that has been moving in absolutely the wrong direction. We've not stood idly by while this crisis has continued to spread throughout our region. We have taken action with our homelessness task force and have represented Auburn on regional boards and committees that are focused on just this matter. But we also recognize that it has not been enough and that we absolutely must do more. In January of this year, I joined King County Executive Dow Constantine and Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin co-convening One Table, a regional initiative that looks at addressing homelessness by tackling its root causes, including housing affordability. This coalition brings together government, business leaders, service providers, advocates, philanthropists, and those who have lived in homelessness, and also local residents to develop innovative solutions to address this crisis. While we must find ways to assist those that have already become unsheltered, we will never make progress without finding ways to diminish the very things that have pushed so many to the brink. I believe that we will find the most meaningful solutions by using this regional approach, by looking at how we how the interconnections between our cities can both help and, yes, hinder our successes. But I also believe that we cannot wait for change to arrive at our doorstep, that we must always, in South King County and specifically in Auburn, we must always lead by example. So in August of last year, the City of Auburn, in partnership with Valley Cities and the Auburn Food Bank, opened the Ray of Hope Resource Center, a day shelter focused on breaking the barriers that keep many in that cycle of homelessness. The center provides access in one centralized location to services including job training and support, mental health and substance abuse treatment, and hygiene services. Sometimes we take that for granted. But I also don't believe in giving handouts. I believe wholeheartedly in providing a hand up to those who are looking for a way to move forward. And many times it can be something as simple as having the ability to register for a driver's license, something that many of us take for granted. It's a key requirement when applying for a job. Or it can be something as small as having a fresh shave and a haircut for a job interview. Quite a difference, wouldn't you say? But how many of us take those things for granted every day? You know, I have a hair appointment coming up next week. I don't think anything of it. I know that when I go home tonight, I can take a shower. There are many who haven't had haircuts for quite a while and who haven't seen or felt the warm water of a shower for days. We can't forget those things. And addressing this challenge goes far beyond treating the outcome of homelessness. It starts with stemming the tide from the outset by protecting the security of housing for those already at risk in our community. In 2017, the City of Auburn provided more than $390,000 to residents for critical home repairs through our Housing Repair Assistance Program. $390,000. This program provides low-income homeowners with grants for emergency home repairs, everything from repairing a leaky roof to replacing a broken furnace. I'd like to share a letter from you from one of the individuals who received assistance through the program.
To the City of Auburn. When I got sick, we lost it all. Every road we turned on, there was a disappointment. I was forced to close my business and sold everything to survive. Pawning the last of our things was a normal way of life. I did the best I could at repairing leaking spots on our roof, but the age of the roof was the real problem. For 4 years, I continued to spread tar on our roof and tried to get financing to replace it. We were catching drips in bowls and trash cans, and something had to be done. I then learned the City of Auburn had improvement funds for disabled residents. I collected all the documents needed and filled out the application. I felt hope and prayed a lot while wishing that I would be approved. When I received the call that I had been approved for a new roof, I went to my car and called my wife. She was so excited, and we spent a few moments talking and crying a little. So much stress had been lifted off us. When she came home, there was a new sense of happiness in the air, something we have not felt in 10 years. I go outside a lot and look up at the new roof. My children are excited, my wife comes home with a smile, and I feel refreshed. I am eager to try to finish some of the small projects around the house, now that I know a leaky roof will not ruin them. I now understand and totally agree with the City of Auburn's motto, more than you imagined.
We receive comments and letters like that on a regular basis by people who have been helped. And again, it might seem insignificant to some of us, but it's the difference between having shelter and not having shelter to some. And that's what I'm speaking about when I say fostering love within our community. We cannot begin to solve the pressing challenges of this century if we act in isolation or with indifference. We will solve them by being connected as a community. This past June, we held a town hall right here at the Auburn Avenue Theater to address the startling rise in drug addiction that we're seeing sweep the nation, our state, and yes, our city. We asked experts from throughout Auburn and the region to speak about what has driven the epidemic of opioid drug use and what can we do to combat it. We also heard from a brave member of our own community, a very good friend of mine, who has risen out of that stranglehold of addiction. Embracing those brave enough to tell their stories, removing the stigma surrounding addiction, and listening with open minds about real solutions is the only thing that's ever going to move us out of this crisis. We must begin to see this issue for what it truly is if we can ever begin to change it. In 2016, myself, Executive Constantine, then Seattle Mayor Ed Murray, and Renton Mayor Dennis Law co-convened the Heroin and Prescription Opioid Addiction Task Force. It's quite a mouthful. And it was comprised of 43 agencies, including our own Auburn Police Department and a member of the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe. And it was to develop a comprehensive strategy that focuses on prevention, increasing access to treatment on demand, and reducing fatal overdoses. This task force returned last year with a list of 8 key recommendations falling under the categories of primary prevention, treatment expansion and enhancement, and health and harm reduction. We were not all in agreement on those solutions, but I do believe that joining together in search of a meaningful and actionable solution was a critical first step in the right direction. One of the most controversial of these proposed solutions was safe injection sites. To be clear, Auburn voted against the recommendation as a member of that task force, and the City Council has since taken further action to ban such sites in our city. But there were findings from this task force that we can wholeheartedly support and have already begun to implement right here in Auburn, including the distribution of Narcan. So it's also available now, because of the work of the Healthy Auburn Task Force, at every pharmacy in the city of Auburn. This year, every patrol unit within our police department was outfitted with this life-saving overdose reversal drug. In less than 12 months, it has already been administered by our officers 25 times. That's more than 2 per month. 3 of those times result in the life-saving medals of honor being awarded to our officers. Every life is worth saving, and we hope that by rescuing someone who is experiencing a drug overdose, both by administering Narcan and then offering them treatment options, we're sending them a clear message that they are of value and that we are here to help them move out of a life of drug use and abuse. During this past year, our police department has also undertaken a significant push to increase our community-centered policing efforts. We've doubled the number of bike officers on patrol, part of 6 new positions that was created in the last 12 months has allowed for that additional bike officer. Our community response teams have increased their foot patrols and are making concentrated efforts to engage with our residents in encounters outside of emergency service calls. Everything from making Christmas wishes come true to joining in the neighborhood snowball fight. So by developing those strong connections within our community, by making our faces and names known and familiar, we strengthen the bond of trust between residents and our police force. When we step out of our cars and interact with each other, one-on-one, we become partners in protecting our city. We believe it's working. Last year alone, Auburn saw a 17.9% reduction in overall crime. We still know that we have much more work to do, and I know for those in our community that have been affected by crime, progress can't come soon enough. But we, as your city, are committed to you and to making the city the safest it can be. One of the ways that we're doing this is by taking the community-connected approach outside the walls of our police department. In 2017, our code compliance team resolved a total of 1,140 cases. These violations come in many, many forms: illegal dumping, graffiti, overgrown vegetation, and as our officers will tell you, the circumstances that lead to these violations, they're just as varied. Many of the cases our officers encounter are far more complex than a neighbor who is simply a little grumpy and unwilling to maintain their lawn. Many times our officers find themselves at the intersection of enforcing city code and demonstrating compassion for those vulnerable in our community. That was the case with one resident who was brought to the attention of our team after neighbors had made complaints about the overgrowth on his property. When our officers made contact with the elderly gentleman, they learned that not only did he have physical limitations that made the work difficult, he had also just lost his wife of 32 years to cancer. Their garden, which had been their place of solitude and respite for time spent together, had become a painful memory of her passing, one that he had chosen to retreat from entirely. Through a partnership between the city and the Auburn Adventist Academy, more than a dozen students convened at this resident's home during a day of service to trim and haul vegetation from his property and restore a sense of pride. In the words of Pastor Jennifer Woody from the Auburn Adventist Academy, our vision and mission of community outreach is to love, connect, and serve our community. And this is not the only example of the power of action that comes when we look to solve our challenges by being connected as that community. Our team has also partnered with Green River College's Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society to paint and repair properties affected by graffiti. Though our code requires that graffiti be covered quickly in order to deter gang activity and further tagging, we also recognize that it is a crime that has been committed against the property owner. If we find those who are physically unable or do not have the financial capacity to pay for the cost of graffiti cleanup, we're only injuring ourselves. Through this partnership, we're able to join forces with the youth of our city to right a wrong and once again build community. This is where Love of City is born. We love it because we've invested something of ourselves into it. We have ownership. This summer, we held our second annual community picnic series. These events were held in each of our 6 patrol districts: Southeast Auburn, South Auburn, North Auburn, Lee Hill, West Hill, and Lakeland Hills. The gatherings offered opportunities for residents to meet and talk with our city council, staff from each department within our city, myself, and to discuss openly what is working well and what we need to improve on. We saw more than 1,000 attendees at these events and enjoyed food prepared by service clubs from throughout the city, including the Kiwanis Club and our sister cities groups from China and Italy. And it was good food too. We've also continued our evening neighborhood meetings, inviting residents to meet with our police officers and human services team to have open and honest discussions about the specific concerns in each neighborhood and to work collectively toward finding solutions. Cities, they are a shared story. They are a common narrative that we identify with and we're shaped by. By continuing to foster these connections, by drawing on our shared love for Auburn, we ensure that we are all part of that process, and together, we are shaping the direction of our city. When we love our city, we want it to be healthy and long-lived. We care for it as we care for ourselves, because it's ultimately part of our own health. Back in 2015, a King County Community Health Needs Assessment report showed that South King County, including Auburn, was among the most negatively impacted areas in the state for health, housing, and economic opportunity. The report showed that as a result, individuals living in the South End have a life expectancy 13 years shorter than anywhere else in the county. And that doesn't mean that we're going to live 13 years less than your cousin that lives up in Kirkland. That's not what I mean. But it does show statistically that we have shorter lifespans in South King County. And as I spoke about last year, our administration took action as a result of this data, forming a blue ribbon committee led by our own Pat Bailey, who's back in the back, thank you, Pat, for a healthier Auburn. This committee consists of a large body of volunteers with representatives from the community, from Multicare, the Auburn School District, Muckleshoot Indian Tribe, Green River College, Valley Cities Mental Health, Auburn Valley YMCA, Health Point, and Seattle King County Public Health of Auburn. One of the primary initiatives this group was to address, among other top health issues, the need for increased access to mental health treatment. Washington, you might have heard me say this before, Washington is currently ranked 48th in the nation for access to behavioral health services. 48th. We should be ashamed. It's part of a decades-long loss of funding, and it's a trend we can't continue to have occur. And the consequences of that trend are being felt in dramatic ways across our state. I'm proud to say that as a result of the diligent work of this committee, we have created a one-of-a-kind mental health program that we have begun to share with healthcare workers, schools, and municipalities throughout the United States. The READY program is a 1-hour course that provides practical, real-life training on what to do when you encounter someone experiencing a mental health crisis, whether that be a friend, a loved one, or someone you just met. It really is a down-to-earth CPR for mental health, if you will. It's a guide for what can trigger a mental health emergency and what you can do and say to stabilize the situation after 911 is called and before the first responders arrive. I'd like to take a moment here to ask, how many of you here know someone who has faced a mental health challenge? So if you'll take a moment, we're actually going to do a poll on this. So if you will respond A for yes, you do know someone, B for no if you don't know anyone who has had a mental health crisis.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue.
86% of you know someone. 86%. I doubt that 5 years ago we would have had a number that high. But the fact is, we have that situation now, and we need to deal with it. It's estimated that 1 in 30 people in Washington is dealing with a severe mental health illness. Yet get this, there are only 729 beds in our entire state that are dedicated to psychiatric care. That's not right. It's clear that we must search for answers to this crisis beyond the national and the state level, that we must begin the important work to address this issue right here at home. This summer, we will be organizing a mental health town hall to further build on the work started by the READY program. And we want to hear from residents, from business owners, from nonprofit organizations, and experts in healthcare about what we, as a city, because everything starts at the local level, can do to address the staggering need, and about how we can work together collaboratively to make meaningful changes. So I hope you plan on joining me here, because it'll be held right here when we talk about that important issue once we have it scheduled. So a major component of health is also determined by our environment. Only 20% of a person's health is determined by what we typically define as health care, our doctors, our hospitals. That means the other 80%, well, it's influenced by environments we live in and the socioeconomic factors that are often determined by those environments. A recent study of Japanese seniors found that those who like where they live 6% longer than their counterparts. So if that doesn't encourage you to love your city and love where you live, well, I don't know what's going to. It's proven right there that you're going to live longer if you love your city. How many of you are going to love your city? I want to see everybody's hand up out there. How many of you are going to love your city? There we go. So building a city that draws us together, either in our parks, our trails, or at a social and cultural event, it creates a city that is happier, healthier, and far more resilient. In Auburn, we maintain over 30 miles of trails, 600 acres of parkland spread over 34 parks. Last month, members of our environmental services team joined with volunteers from throughout the community for our first annual, maybe some of you attended, our first annual Swamp Stomp. Anybody? No swamp stompers? All right. Well, that event was to tap down invasive grasses in our environmental park and then plant native species to enhance the habitat for wetland creatures. This past summer, during our Clean Sweep event, more than 700 of our friends and neighbors joined together to brighten our city, adding a new playground at Regner Park, clearing paths at Cedar Lanes and at our Auburn Lake, planting trees at Lescove Park, and spreading wood chips at our community gardens. In July, our Parks Department unveiled Get Your Play On campaign and challenged residents to explore our city by matching a calendar of images with their real locations throughout Auburn. And during the 2017 school year, nearly 4,000 students toured White River Valley Museum and the Mary Olson Farm. And in the process, they learned about our native cultures and experienced hands-on Auburn's proud farming history. When we talk about what's taken place in our city over the course of the year, we often overlook these small actions and events that create, in their entirety, the largest impact on our community. I hope that tonight we're helping to shine a light on these actions so that we can both celebrate these stories and inspire one another to build on them. A key component of building love is honoring the history and traditions that have made our city what it is today. These are the places and the moments the time spent with family and friends that our life stories are built around. In 2016, the city acquired the former Big Daddy's drive-in site, and while the building was too far beyond repair to be salvaged, we have continued to honor the tradition that this place held by restoring the original drive-in pergola and adding a winding walkway that connects the site with Les Gove Community Campus. This summer, we hosted our first summer cruise-in series. Anybody out there attend those? Yeah, I was there. It was a summer cruise-in with classic cars, music, and food, and a tradition that I sincerely hope we continue for decades to come. We're also in the process of restoring the old Auburn Post Office, a historic landmark that was built in 1937 as part of the National Work Relief Program. Through the diligent work of our staff, we have secured nearly $500,000 in grants to restore this building to its original luster and transform it into an arts and culture center that will serve all in our community for a long time to come. We're also beginning to work further to activate downtown by transforming the alleyway just out here between the post office and the theater with lighting, paving, and vibrant landscaping to create an active space for community gathering and entertainment. Just 2 months ago, we lost an iconic part of our downtown when a 3-alarm fire tore through the Heritage Building just less than a block away from here. 9 businesses and 36 residents were housed in this 97-year-old building. And while the building was a complete loss, I am so thankful that there were no human lives lost in that fire. Take a look.
Engine 31, engine 32, engine 38, engine 34, engine 33, ladder 64, ladder 74, battalion 31, battalion 74, Tank 32, PIO 32 on fire for a possible commercial fire, Heritage Building, 134 East Main Street.
There's a house built out of stone, wooden floors, walls, and windowsills.
I just need somewhere to go to put my head at night, you know? I just need a home. That's all I need. I just need a home so me and my husband can rest.
This is a place where I don't feel this is a place where I feel at home.
24 hours later,
How you doing?
a community clings to words of comfort.
At least nobody died.
Yes.
Because this is something that's really changing the face of Auburn. Auburn's losing a piece of our Main Street in this. It's just a big change for us.
Somebody bought me a motel room. Somebody handed me a $100 bill.
It's the silver lining that brings the smile.
Oh my God!
And a hopeful sense of humor.
Gotta have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Even in times like this.
By the cracks of his skin, I climbed to the top.
Kind of sad to see what we've lost, but also curious to see where we'll go from here.
Just less than 2 months ago. Dr. Steve Anderson, chair of our committee for Healthy Auburn, has said in the past, there might be bigger cities in this area, but there are no bigger communities. And I don't think that's ever been any truer than it is right now. In the week that followed the fire, our city showed an outpouring of love that is truly unprecedented. Within days, donations of money, clothing, food, household goods, and furniture to outfit the families impacted had filled gymnasiums and storage buildings to capacity. Our local restaurant owners jumped into action overnight, organizing hot meal deliveries for those staying at the Red Cross shelter. Within 3 weeks, our economic development, emergency management, and human services teams had secured a disaster designation from the governor, opening up funding and assistance to those that were impacted. Today, just over 8 weeks later, 5 of the 9 businesses in that building have either identified new locations or are fully open and operational, most right back here on Main Street. We don't know yet what the future of the Heritage Building site will be, but we do know that it will be a critical part in the transitions that are changing the face of our downtown. One of the ways this is happening is through the creation of more third places. Any of you heard of third places? It's not work, and it's not home. That third place is where we go for a sense of retreat. It's the places where we sit and people watch, where we catch up with old friends, grab a cup of coffee, where we read a good book in the afternoon sun. During the past year and a half, we've welcomed nearly a dozen new third places to our downtown. Last year, at the same State of the City address, I asked you to share what you wanted most to be added to our city core. And your overwhelming response was good places to eat. Well, I am pleased to announce that in the past year and a half, we have seen an amazing array of new restaurants opening right here on Main Street or along this corridor. From fine dining at Vinefera Wine Bar and Bistro, to authentic Southeast Asian food at Gorgai Thai. These places are coming together to create a love of place that is shared over good food, drinks, and culture. Now, just 2 weeks ago, Auburn kicked off its very own Mardi Gras celebration, bookending Main Street in celebration with our 2 New Orleans-style restaurants, The Quarters and Go Brewing. This was the first major event as part of the rejuvenation efforts that have been taking place with our business improvement area and the Auburn Downtown Association. Through the diligent work of this group of downtown business owners, we are just beginning to see the transformations that are in works to enhance and further activate our downtown core. It was an amazing weekend of merriment, In fact, I recommend you get your beads ready, because it won't be long before you see a parade heading down Main Street with a full jazz band in tow. I know our BIA and our ADA will have much more in store for us all in the year to come. But you get those beads ready, because I'm sure there's a parade coming. So within the next year or two, or within this year, there will be 2 new projects breaking ground on Division Street, just adjacent over here to the Trek and the Merrill Gardens buildings. This construction will create more than 300 new housing units in our downtown, along with retail on the bottom floors. This will be market rate apartments. One of the most common questions I hear from residents is, when are there going to be more businesses downtown, right? And one of the most common questions I hear from business owners is, are there going to be enough people downtown to support my store? Fair questions from both sides. By creating that strong urban living environment in our city core, we're able to solve this dilemma by creating a sustainable population for businesses to sell their goods, while also creating a vibrant shopping and dining experience that draws more people into our downtown. But most importantly, we create a sense of vitality. When our downtown becomes more than a series of storefronts that close down at night, but rather a neighborhood alive with people and one-on-one interactions, we begin to build those connections and build community that is invested in one another. We're beginning to see this evolution in other parts of our city as well. After sitting untouched for more than a decade, the 70-acre site of the old Valley 6 Drive-In has been open for pre-leasing of future mixed-use buildings and retail operations. That property is owned by the Robertson's Property Group out of California. And they have finally awoken and realized this is the place that they need to be focusing on. In October, we were also happy to learn that the GSA will sell their federal complex in our commercial business district. The opening of this 129-acre piece of land provides a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to ignite this area of our city with new housing and retail and jobs, where only warehouses have stood vacant for more than half a century. And as the momentum builds, we continue to attract the attention of some of the world's leading companies. Last month, Boeing unveiled their Workforce Readiness Center. That was the first new facility constructed by the company in Auburn in more than 25 years. They believe in us. They believe in Auburn. We also welcomed the West Coast's first Dave & Buster's to the Outlet Collection. How many of you have been there? Yes. How many of you have had fun there? Yes. How many of you have had to wait in line there because it's such a popular place to go? Yes. That's what it's all about, creating that sense of place, creating fun, creating good opportunities for people to connect one-on-one away from their phones. Now, also along with Dave & Buster's, we just opened Columbia Sportswear, and Ulta Beauty will be opening very soon. We're even home to our very own space company. That's right, Spaceflight Industries. They're building rockets and satellites for companies around the world, right here in Auburn. So, it can be easy to forget just how much we offer as a city. This summer, we launched a new tourism campaign designed to showcase some of the things we think are so special here in Auburn. So for those of you that might not have seen it, I'd like to take a moment and share that short video with you.
How long now have I been here? How long will I stay? Picking up the pieces before I'm on my way. Before I get there, before I show up, before I'm somewhere, before I grow up, I'll be here to get it right now.
Think you can find some third places in there that you might enjoy a little time? I think so. So we all are co-creators in that story that is our city. It is a level playground where we all have something to contribute. Now, according to Peter Kagiyama, author of For the Love of Cities and Love Where You Live, he says it's easy to say you love your place, but it's much harder to show it, in part because of the way we think about the nature of city building. We see ourselves as spectators to the process because it seems so very big and very daunting. Now, some might not believe in the power of small, but I do. Please don't mistake small for unimportant. In our personal lives, it's most often the tiny, tiny acts of love or the tiny acts of neglect which make or break relationships. Be a city builder, no matter how big, no matter how small. Don't just rent your city, invest in it. Own it. Love it. Be #AuburnProud. I hope tonight that you've seen some things that excite you, either grow or rekindle your love for Auburn. And I hope that you will join us on this journey, that you will reach out, share your ideas and thoughts with us as we find new and exciting ways to fall in love with our city. Thank you so much for the opportunity, for the honor that I have of being your mayor, for being able to love this city so much. Thank you for joining us this evening, and go out and find new ways to love our city. Thank you.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Well, give me all you got and don't hold it back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Hey, go. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. The love is too high. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. I said, bring me down, can't none bring me down. The love is too high. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. I said, because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. that's what you wanna do. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. The love is too high to bring me down. Can't none bring me down. I said, because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
Thank you all so much for being here, for what you do to make Auburn a better place, for joining in with a little fun tonight. And whatever we can do to make Auburn a better place for you, please don't hesitate to let us know, because it only makes it better for every one of us. Thank you. Thank you for letting me love our city. Have a great evening.